Imagine sailing into a horizon where every old map ends, where the edge of the world is not a line on paper, but a terrifying drop into endless darkness. Some people go looking for that edge on purpose. Some are dragged over it by a whale, a storm, a mountain, or a mystery with no explanation. These are 4 true stories about the moment the world runs out from under people's feet, and what it takes to come back from it, if they come back at all. This is the story of how the edge of the world has swallowed people again and again, and how a few of them clawed their way back. For centuries, men looked across the wide Atlantic and saw only monsters, boiling seas, and certain death. The kings laughed. The scholars mocked. They called it a fool's errand. But one man refused to look away. His name was Christopher Columbus. Armed with nothing more than a shaky compass, a burning obsession, and 3 tiny, fragile wooden ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina, he prepared to step off the edge of reality. The ship set sail from Palos into the heavy, biting salt air, carrying a crew of men who believed they were sailing straight to their graves. Day after day, the shores of Spain faded into a lonely, gray nothingness. The vast, empty ocean stretched out infinitely in every direction, mocking their fears. And then the invisible enemy arrived. The compass needle began to twitch. The North Star seemed to shift. Panic crawled into the dark corners of the lower deck. The sailors whispered in the shadows, their eyes wild with terror, plotting mutiny against the madman who led them. But Columbus stood at the helm, staring into the endless horizon, refusing to turn back. Columbus proved a man could survive the edge of the map. But the ocean does not lose interest just because one voyage succeeds. 300 years later, it would remind another crew exactly how small they really were. Imagine the sound of your world breaking. It begins with a splintering, catastrophic crack. 1,000 miles from any shore, the hull of the Essex splits wide open under the weight of a leviathan's pure rage. Rushing water, cold, relentless, filling the dark hold. The eerie metallic groan of a dying giant slips beneath the black waves, leaving nothing but debris. Now there is only silence, and 3 tiny, fragile wooden whaleboats. The Pacific is not an ocean here. It is a desert of water. By day, the sun scorches their blistered skin, drying their throats to dust. By night, the wind howls a cold, empty promise of doom. Every creak of the wet wood beneath them is a reminder of how thin the line is between life and the deep. The men's minds keep replaying the attack, the sharp whoosh of the harpoon, the scream of the line running out, and worst of all, the final blow. Not a sharp crack, but a deep, sub-bass boom, the sound of heavy oak splintering as the whale struck home. Day after day bled into agony. Their water gone. Their food gone. Under a merciless sun, their tongues swelled, their throats cracked to dust. They looked at one another and no longer saw men. They saw skeletal shadows. And so, In the deepest, darkest hours of their desperation, they were forced into a choice so horrific it would stain their souls for the rest of eternity. They drew lots to decide who would die so that the others might survive. For 95 agonizing days they endured this nightmare, until a clothing resting beside it, as if someone had simply stepped away a moment before. There was enough food and water to last for months. Yet the captain, Benjamin Briggs, a devout, deeply respected mariner who had brought along his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, along with 7 trusted crewmen, and every other soul aboard, had simply vanished. What was missing told its own story. The ship's chronometer, its sextant, its navigational charts, and the single small lifeboat torn away from its davits as if the crew had abandoned ship in a blind, frantic panic. So why would experienced sailors flee a structurally sound, fully provisioned vessel in the middle of the open ocean? The most credible theory points to those barrels below deck. In the tropical heat, the alcohol may have begun slowly leaking, filling the hold with invisible, highly flammable fumes. Fearing an imminent explosion, Briggs may have ordered an evacuation into the ship's small boat, intending only to wait a safe distance away until the air cleared, planning to tow behind the Mary Celeste until it was safe to reboard. But then the wind changed. A sudden squall likely snapped the tow line, leaving 10 people stranded in an open boat, watching their ship sail on without them. To this day, no wreckage, no bodies, and no confirmed answer has ever surfaced. It remains one of history's most enduring maritime mysteries. The Mary Celeste vanished into the sea without a mark left behind. But not every story of the edge of the world ends in disappearance. Some end in survival, if the people trapped there are willing to fight for it. It was October 13, 1972. Fuerza Aérea Uruguaya Flight 571 was carrying 45 people, mostly a young rugby team, along with friends and family, completely unaware of the nightmare about to unfold. Heavy cloud cover blinded the crew. Believing they had already cleared the Andes, the pilots began their descent, flying directly into the heart of the mountains. The clouds parted for a terrifying second, revealing a wall of rock dead ahead. The right wing sheared off against the cliff face. The tail snapped away into the abyss. What remained of the fuselage plunged into the deep snow. Of the 45 aboard, a dozen were dead before the wreckage came to rest. The survivors, athletes and students in lightweight summer clothes, were now stranded at over 11,000 feet, with no food, no shelter, and temperatures plunging to -30 degrees Celsius at night. Then came the worst news of all, crackling over a salvaged transistor radio. The search for them had been called off. They were, as far as the world was concerned, already dead. But just when it seemed the mountain had taken everything, it struck again. On the night of October 29th, an avalanche buried the fuselage, killing 8 more and trapping the rest inside a pitch-black, suffocating tomb for 3 days. With no food left and no rescue coming, the survivors made the most agonizing decision of their lives: to use the bodies of the friends they'd lost in order to stay alive long enough for someone, anyone, to find them. By December, with the summer sun finally softening the snow, 2 of the survivors, Nando Parado and Roberto Canessa, understood the truth. No one was coming. If they wanted to live, they would have to climb out themselves. With no ropes, no maps, and no climbing gear, just a crude sleeping bag stitched from insulation and wire, they began scaling a wall of ice and rock thousands of feet high. For 10 brutal days they walked, starved and frostbitten, through what turned out to be the very heart of the range, far from the edge they'd hoped to find. And then, near a rushing river, they saw a man on horseback on the far bank. Unable to cross, the herder threw a pencil and paper wrapped around a stone. With trembling hands, Parado wrote back the words that would reach the entire world, that they had survived, that people were still alive on the mountain, and that they needed help. Within hours, rescue helicopters thundered into the glacier. Of the 45 who had boarded that flight, 16 came home. 72 days after the crash, they walked off that mountain, proof that even at the very edge of the world, it's possible to find a way back. 4 ships, 4 mountains, 4 ways the world can run out from under someone's feet. Mutiny in the dark, a whale's fury, a silence with no explanation, and a mountain that nearly took everything.